YugiNoNo!
King Prepare!
Alright, Yugi Mofos, today I'm going to be going over Forgotten Cards Code of the Duelist Edition. You guys really enjoyed the last Forgotten Cards pilot, so I will be continuing the series. I will also eventually be starting a Forgotten Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck series in the future as well, because apparently I'm the only bastard that remembers this crap that cares to make videos of it. I'm getting old. Anyways, this is going to be called Code of the Duelist Edition because we recently got new support for older archetypes in this set, because no one wants to hear about this Link crap, am I right? No? Well, watch the video anyways. I am mainly going to be talking about Dark World and Lightshorns, which are two amazing archetypes from Yu-Gi-Oh's past that I might end up doing deck profiles over. But I am also going to be going over Trap Tricks because we even got a new Trap Tricks card. Have flashbacks, anyone? But let's start off with Dank Worlds. Despite their badass artwork, Dark Worlds are actually one of the most hated Yu-Gi-Oh decks of all time. This is because all Dark Worlds do is discard, and they get to view their opponent's hand using our first forgotten card,
Drag down to the grave.
This card says both players reveal their hands, each player chooses one card from their opponent's hand, then you discard the chosen cards from both players' hands, then both players draw one card. So this is actually kind of a double forgotten card, because when Dark Worlds first came out, no one remembered it existed, and people have forgotten this card again. How bad of a card do you have to be forgotten twice?
Allure of darkness, my old friend.
But when Dark Worlds first came out, clever players quickly picked up on this card and started playing it because they could not only view their opponent's hand, but drag down triggers their Dark World monsters. You can also use this hand knowledge that you gain to play Mind Crush and snipe a card from your opponent, which is brutal. Taking cards from your opponent is always strong in Yu-Gi-Oh! That is why cards like Delinquent Duo and Trap Dust Shoot are still banned to this day. And because taking cards from your opponent is so strong, Dark World players took it to the next level. Some Dark World players decided to play our next forgotten card, Forced Requisition. Forced Requisition states that you can activate this card when you discard from your hand. After that, each time you discard from your hand, your opponent must also discard the same number of cards from his or her hand. So if your opponent was not playing a Dark World deck and you played this card, they were gonna have a bad time. Because they would lose card after card after card, and your Dark Worlds would just keep triggering. Just keep triggering, just keep triggering. Some other forgotten cards that are relevant to Dark Worlds are the Cheerful Coffin and Death Amulet. Cheerful Coffin says discard up to 3 monster cards from your hand to the graveyard. This effect is an inherent -1, so it basically sucks, but it can trigger your Dark World monsters. And Death Amulet says when your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can discard one card to negate the attack. And this card blows itself up during your opponent's third end phase after activation. So it is technically a better card than the Cheerful Coffin because it can negate attacks as well as provide a continuous discard outlet for your Dark World monsters. But let's be real though, there are way better cards that you could be playing in Dark Worlds. Like our next forgotten card, Trance Archfiend. Trance Archfiend lets you discard from your hand to bump up its attack, which triggers your Dark World monsters. And this next part really doesn't matter that much, but this card is so cool looking, so it fits perfectly into your Dark World theme. And the last forgotten card when it comes to Dark Worlds is Malefic Stardust Dragon. And to be honest, who remembers Malefics at all? Oh, that's right. I do. Malefics are a really cool archetype that lets you get big attack monsters out for free, but that is a whole discussion for another video. All you need to know for this video is that Malefic Stardust Dragon protects your Dark World field spell. And that is it for the Dark World stuff. Next up, let's talk about Lightshorns. Lightshorns are a deck similar to Dark Worlds in a way because they also use the graveyard, but as far as artwork goes, they look almost exactly opposite. Actually, they probably look as opposite as you can get. It's literally pretty much heaven and hell. Lightshorns mill cards from the top of the deck to the graveyard and load it up to be used for several different things. In Pure Lightsworn, you want to mill enough names for Judgment Dragon.
Judging you.
And in Zombie Sworn, you want to mill cards like Mizuki and Plague Spreader. And in Chaos variants, you want Lights and Darks in the graveyard for Chaos monsters like Light Pulsar or BLS. But there are some techs that players added to make the deck have more options or cards that can simply save your sorry ass, which is what I'm going to begin with. Starting off with Necrogardna. Necrogardna lets you negate an attack from an opponent's monster, and it is also a Dark in the Grave for Chaos decks. But this card is kind of bad to draw, which is why the next card became far superior. Of course, I'm talking about the gayest of all the Karibos, Rainbow Karibo.
You got a problem, bitch?
No? This card says when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can target the attacking monster, equip this card from your hand to that monster, it cannot attack. When an opponent's monster declares a direct attack while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. So this card having 2 effects makes it a way better forgotten card than Necrogardna. The last card that could save your ass that I could think of is Electromagnetic Turtle. This card sucks to draw just like Necrogardna, but ends the battle phase instead of negating just one attack. Players used to tech in whole engines into the deck as well, like the long-forgotten Plant engine or the Malicious engine. But both of these engines are two engines that I'll probably end up talking about more in depth in my Forgotten Deck series. But really, you get the picture here when it comes to Lightshorns. Mill stuff to the grave or summon stuff from the grave. Those are the two things that the deck does and does well. And finally, for you Trap Tricks fans out there, let's get to the Trap Trick support. And the new Trap Trick support is a card called Trap Tricks Mantis. Now, Trap Tricks are also technically Trap Hole support, and by extension, Trap Hole.deck. Now, we are all familiar with cards like Trap Tricks Trap Hole Nightmare or Bottomless Trap Hole. So, of course, this being the Forgotten Yu-Gi-Oh card series, I'm going to bring up some Trap Hole cards that have been long forgotten. Starting with Acid Trap Hole. Acid Trap Hole might be my favorite out of the more obscure Trap Hole cards, because it comes in that prismatic, secret rare Game Boy rarity,
which is so shiny and my favorite.
Anyways, the card's effect states target one face-down defense position monster on the field. Flip it face up, then destroy it if its defense is 2,000 or less, or return it face down if its defense is more than 2,000. Definitely the most interesting Trap Hole card, and really one that can only be played against decks that set a lot of monsters. Then we have Giant Trap Hole, which is actually a common, and a common that I thought was going to be played once Pendulums became more relevant, because it says when two or more monsters are special summoned at the same time, destroy all monsters on the field. So it destroys a Pendulum summon and nukes the field. Now, this card obviously isn't as good against Pendulums as Time Space Trap Hole or Bottomless Trap Hole, but there was a time when I genuinely thought this card could have been played. Alright, you guys, this is going to do it for this episode of Forgotten Yu-Gi-Oh cards. If you have any crazy cards that you have found, let me know down below, and as always, be sure to dick slap that like button and subscribe.
Subscribe!